wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Spending time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home while focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the blues let this last.
I don't know if the earth is painted blue.
That was the great sounds of Watson with Outside on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, Easy Bluez is in the building. Easy Bluez, you are better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us today on Behind the Brand?
Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to get a little outside the box of thinking, okay? They say that every person dies two deaths. And sometimes with artists, that first death can be massively lonely. If you do not have people there to tell your tale, to let the legacy of who you are and what you know move forward, then technically that first death is the only thing you have. So in life, you need people like Prestige and sometimes me. I'm not really factual when it comes down to telling people stories, but sometimes me. If you want a good tall tale, right? You also have, as an artist, these different avenues you can go through. And we spoke about this last week when we had Multifamily James on here, is the way to connect so that more people can know about what you are doing. And that is dealing with the press aspect of it. And we're actually here with someone that is a phenomenal journalist, but also has had a life beyond journalism itself, and has now kind of culminated to this wonderful thing as per myampmusic.com. I want you to put your hands together, not if you're driving. If you're driving, keep your hands at 10 and 2. No car accidents are necessary, okay? 10 and 2, but mentally put your hands together for the amazing Ralph Beauchamp, or Beauchamp?
Beauchamp, but you can do it any way you want, my man.
No, that's not true. But I got a hard last name. That's why I go by a pseudonym. I got a really hard last name, and I have that respect aspect. I've been called everything under the sun, and sometimes those things are actually very worthy of what I need to be called. But sometimes when it comes down to life's name, Beauchamp, how are you doing, brother? Ralph?
Great.
I'm gonna call you Ralph because I'm
doing?
gonna forget the rest of it.
Excellent, man.
Oh,
Excellent.
always good, always good. Now, you are at this point in time, in this avenue of life, you are a journalist, you are a music journalist, kind of towards the rock aspect of it, you cover the different things. That's not where you started. This is what, evolution 5 or 6 for you?
Well, basically, I've done pretty much every aspect in the music business, from management to promotion. And what eventually happened was that what I went to college for was to be a journalist. So finally, when I moved here to Connecticut, I kind of left the industry end of it. It kind of burnt me out a little bit. So still in your blood. And I figured out what can I do from home and still enjoy things. So I said, I went to school to be a journalist. Let me start a little website and see how it goes. And from there, it kind of grew into a little larger website, which I'm kind of glad because there's a lot of good music, locally and internationally that nobody's listening to.
No, I 100% agree with that. And that's one of the coolest things that I dig about your website is you have this wonderful balance of global or mainstream, or at one point in time, mainstream music and that independent local aspect. And in no way are you losing your identity in covering either one. There's been many sites that, only want to focus on A or only want to focus on B, but it's that synergy, just like we have a bunch of people on this show, but there's always a synergy in the tale, how it started, the journey itself, and to go on. There's an amazing synergy that not a lot of people understand when you take the global mainstream acts and you look at them through a local point of view or perspective. Did you want to set out to do that so that you could tell the local tale on more of a wider level, or is this just actually who you are?
Well, first of all, it's probably who I am. But second of all, how I really started this thing is my brother-in-law similar to me in age. We're up there a little bit on the age aspect. But my generation kind of falls into a loop. All they want to listen to is Led Zeppelin. All they want to listen to is AC/DC. Their newest probably band is Guns N' Roses. So, one time I challenged them. I says, there's so many good bands, so much good music that's coming out today. Younger people from all over the world, from the United States, from Connecticut, from Europe, that nobody's listening to because nobody knows about it. And you're kind of going into like I said, a musical loop. And so I told him, I said, I'm going to start this website to give you a heads up on bands that you should be listening to. And that's how it basically started. But what I really like to do is focus on local bands the most, because, those are the bands I'm seeing personally. Bands like Shame Penguin, bands like Trashing, I got to give you a shout out. And, Trashing Violet and bands like King Cool, but every genre. I mean, there's, it's great to listen to the hard rock stuff like King Cool, the punk stuff like, your music, or the, eclectic stuff like Passing Strange. I mean, it's nice to have that variety. And on the international and the national end, even the bands we do pick outside of a couple things we've done recently on like the Stones and things like that, they're still, pretty much unknown national bands. I mean, they have a following, but they don't have an international following. And those are the bands I like to pick out, like Mojo Blacktop Mojo. I mean, those bands there that, they've got a good groove, they got a good vibe, but, still a lot of people don't know who they are. So those are the kind of bands I try to focus on. Everybody knows all the big bands. Everybody, can listen to Papa Roach or whatever. They don't need me. They get it. They get the Rolling Stone press. I'm going more on the local level and seeing where we can expand their fan base.
Well, and I love exactly how you phrase that, because it is so important. And there's a lot of artists. I mean, even in our stumblings and growing as a group, that's something we never really understood, to reach out to press. We just thought, hey, you play a really good show and people will show up. And you just continue to have that type of aspect. And there's a lot of truth to that. But when you're not maximizing the potential of the people seeing it, as per, like, how does someone, I'm in XYZ band and I need more people to know about me. How do they go about the proper way to contact, and not just like shooting you a Facebook message that you're probably not going to check because you don't know who this person is, or it falls in your request messages. Like, what's the proper channels to go through? Because there's a lot of people that's starting out that have no clue what they're doing. And it gets very frustrating. Like you said, the business side of music can wear on you. Hunter S. Thompson said it all the time, that music industry is filled of pimps, liars, cheats, lawyers, and all these horrible drug dealers and all this horribleness. And there's a downside too. Big fan of Hunter S.
Yeah.
But at the, how does the up and comer not get frustrated or burnt out because they don't really know? There's no class that these younger musicians can go to know the proper steps to go forth. And a lot of them can't, say, afford a manager or a publicist. So what's that step for them? Well,
the thing where a lot of the info I get and a lot of bands that I do get from social media. So the messenger from a band, I will listen. It doesn't mean I'm going to like it and I'm going to write about it, but I will definitely listen. Facebook, I go on Spotify all the time and try to find, new stuff that, that will interest me. The main thing is not to get frustrated. I mean, I know that's the problem with most bands. I was a manager, I got frustrated. I had 3 signed bands, 2 almost signed bands on the roster. It didn't make a difference, because, if you don't have people pushing you, like an A&R person, if they don't really believe, they sign you in and then they either leave or they really don't believe in that, you're dead in the water. Right. So, it's frustrating. And for an artist, I understand that. I've been in music pretty much 50 years of my life. And, I see the frustrations. And that was part of the reason why I left my management company is because, it just got to a point where like, why am I doing this? I'm spinning my wheels. I get a great band, probably better than most of the stuff that's out on the radio right now, and not getting anywhere. Not making any money, which was, the whole idea of having a management company anyway. So not making any money, but I did it for the love of music. And after a while, I mean, I felt more for the artist than I felt for myself. They would look at me and say, why is this not happening? And there was no real answer. And that's the biggest thing that a band or an act or an artist has to understand. It's perseverance, man. You just got to keep going. If you don't keep going, guess what? It's just not going to happen. And use social media as much as you can. I mean, I listen to a lot of social media. I get tons of requests from bands. Sometimes that's frustrating. I actually was getting anxious during COVID because there was so much good music. It was like, dude, I can't write about all this stuff. It's just so good. I have to put some things aside and take some priorities. But for an artist and on your end, and as far as a journalist, just keep going. Somebody who's going to appreciate if it's good. For shit, it's not. If it's not good, it's not good. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's the key. And there's a lot of different things that people can look at. And like I tell people and artists coming up all the time, make sure you have someone on your team that is the relative hater. Like that's the person that you want. Like when you win that person over, you have the something to go out there with. Because if you have just a whole bunch of people like, yo, we really dig your stuff and it's cool, and they like the experience and they like those type of things, that's great. And you can go so far, but you'll never break that next ceiling because you get complacent. And then you need that frustration kind of to move forward. You need that kind of friction. That's what starts the fire, right? And great art is constantly made from those type of heartaches and pain. I mean, what was it? Le Chic with had the song when they got kicked out of not being able to get into Studio 54, and they turned that heartbreak into a hit song, Le Freak, I believe it was called, or something along those lines. But you have this on a constant level. I mean, even again, talking about like the Shane Penguin journey, we had gotten a review for our song Fall of the Mountain King, and the reviewer didn't understand that I kept the same melody in the first verse and the second verse because I told a completely different story and I wanted people to listen. And that frustrated me. So I went in and this song, Dyslexic Hearts, I make sure that there's not a similar vocal line, in there, but because of that frustration, art was being able to be made. You do sometimes need that pressure and that heat to create the diamond. And it is a really interesting and almost, I guess the best way that we can see it in a pop culture type of aspect was Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali. They had almost like an instigating type of relationship, but because of that, it made complete and total magic. And it can be that way with an artist and a reviewer, where it's like, oh, this person says it's this. Well, I'm going to put that in my petty and my spite bag, and I'm going to prove them wrong. And there's other people. I mean, one of my favorite people that growing up with this man, Vlad Villette from Mystic Underground, I remember him getting his first review for their first CD, and he held it like over everything, and he framed it. And the line in there said, "The best sound this CD made was when it fell out of my player and hit the floor." And then from there, he became a signed artist and a phenomenal DJ in Brooklyn, and he does continuously pushes through, but he still has that review in his office every day, because that is the goal, to make that person change their mind. And he's never met this person. He's never going to meet this person, but that person is as important to the band as any of the members. So that is kind of like where you sit. It's tough, man. I couldn't see doing that.
That's a great story, first of all. I haven't heard that one, but that's a real good story. But yeah, no, I mean, there's got to be tension somewhere. I mean, you like you said, a band that's complacent, you might as well just disband, or might as well just call it quits, because you gotta have, what I see on stage what I write about, and I don't write about every band I see, because there's some bands that first of all, they're bigger bands, they don't need me again, but there's some bands that they're okay, but I don't feel like I need to write about it. Bands that show me, and they don't have to be musically the best band in the world. They could be shitty musicians, but if they don't throw out that energy, sorry about that. If they throw out that energy, then that's what's more important to me. A band, a good punk band that plays halfway decent and has the energy on stage, just gives me that sense of being. Where
Right.
you can go listen to a decent 80s band and sit there and say, yeah, it was good, I had fun, I remember
Right.
all the songs, but guess what? That energy is not there.
Right.
And that energy comes from tension, comes from just want to push out there as much as they can. And there's a ton of bands in Connecticut. There's a ton of bands all over the world that have that kind of feel about them, and that's what makes them different. That angst inside of them is what makes them different than anybody else. And I love that story, because it does, it just shows you. You can't listen to everybody tell you, because most people are gonna tell you, hey, you sound great anyway. Especially if it's your friends or people what you got to need is, and that's where a good manager comes in. They'll be a little bit more critical. And again, not everybody can get a manager, but if you have a good manager there that's going to say, hey, something, that's not going to work, or a good producer from your studio, guy like Vic Stevens, or or Rick Demko, these guys are going to go in the studio and not only make you sound good, they're going to give you very good feedback onto what they think will make the song even better. So there are a lot of aspects. The journalist, the producer, the recording engineer, all these people are going to try to give the good bands feedback to make them even better bands.
That's awesome, and that brings up a phenomenal question and a personal one, because I take this personally. When do you think a band knows when it is time to research that management deal? Because you have a lot of
deal on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Raised, Elm City made, EZ Bluez is in the building. Ralph, AP from AM Radio is. I had Easy Blues.
Well, perfect. Brand new segment, brand new topic, right? Works out great. Phenomenal.
Just one question before you start. Where did you grow? Where'd you grow up in Long Island?
Oh, me? I grew up kind of all over. I was a little bit of a
yeah, we lost somebody.
Hold on. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Had a phone call. That was weird. No one calls me. But no, I grew up on Long Island, more in the Suffolk County aspect of it. Spent some time in Center Ridge, Selden, moved around a lot. I was very much a gypsy for a long time, but I played all over the island. I was actually, I don't know if you were around Long Island time. I was actually in the group SIE, otherwise known as Suck It Easy. That's kind of where Easy Bluez came from.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. Yeah, because I lived in Deer Park for like 12 years, and my kids still live on Long Island. And they were all musicians at one time. My son was a drummer in a Rage cover band, which was actually pretty decent. The other kid was a bass player in a ska band. So I have a little bit of heart to Long Island. But yeah, go back.
No, well, first of all, a ska band from Long Island, I guarantee you, I know your son. I hung out all the time in the Funky Fish. Ska Tuesdays was my life. That's actually when I knew I needed to step out and perform, was when seeing a group called Steph Lively play and knowing all the lines. And they had a song where Brian Diaz from Edna's Goldfish sang a verse on there, and nobody knew it. But I took the tape home and I studied it over and over again. And then one night at the Funky Fish, I just belted out the verse, and the singer ran over and gave me the microphone. And they're like, hey, we're going to Chicago tomorrow. I was like, you're going to Chicago. I'm going to work. But I appreciate your faith in me. You know, so ska is something different when it came from Long Island, and I totally love every aspect of that.
Yeah, you probably don't. You probably know my kid, so
Yeah,
he was big in the ska.
That's awesome. Word, that's amazing. The connections. But like we're saying, you know, in the evolution, you know, of going from like just a regular artist or a young artist, when do they know it is time to seek management? You know, is it when you hit the point of frustration, or is it when you're on a rise?
Basically, it could be any time. I mean, it's really up to the individual artist and band. I would say as early as you can, because a manager or a PR firm that you can hire or comes along the ride, you know, helps. I mean, especially if you have a management that you know knows what they're doing.
Right.
You know, you got a lot of guys that are friends and say, "Hey, I'll manage it," you know, and guess what? You know, then that normally goes nowhere.
Right.
You basically, as far as when it could be early on, if you feel that you're tight enough and you're good enough and you've built up enough of a fan base that you know you can draw people. You know, that's pretty much can be anywhere in the development of the band. I can just tell you right now, you know, I most of the bands that we started with started, you know, in garages, pretty much. You know, they were, you know, I saw them just basically playing either in the basement or in their family's garage, and built them up from there. You know, the only band that came with a, you know, already an album out was a band called the Cheapskates, and you know, which became really big in Europe. We played arenas and, you know, not headlining, but we were support acts in arenas. I couldn't get a weekend in CBs. You know, it was, you know, it was one of those type of acts that did well in Canada. I mean, we played, you know, 2,000 seaters, 3,000 seaters, sold them out. Did well in festivals in the, you know, in Europe. And then, you know, I would go to Hilly Crystal over at CB's and say, hey, you know, how about putting the Cheapskates on? And you look at me like, yeah, I can give you a Tuesday. And I'm sitting there like, you know, that's the frustrating. And then you take the Tuesday because you wanted to play CB's. Yeah, so like as far as the management thing, you know, it's pretty, you know, all over the place. You really got to feel that you know that you are ready, and that's up to the band. Also, I also like the fact that a lot of bands do it themselves. I mean, I deal directly as a journalist with a lot of bands that have skipped that management aspect and kind of did a DIY thing and do everything on their own. And you know, and again, social media is a lot different now than, you know, there was no social media when, you know, when I was a manager. So there you are able to get your stuff out, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you want to go. You may not get paid, but at least you know it's out there for people to hear. You know, that's a whole nother game.
Well, no, it's very true, and I love that topic is brought up because, you know, we talk about it on the regular. You know, you need those things to have people hear your stuff in other places because you should be looking at outside your neighborhood. We talked with Multifamily James last week about you can be the best MC in your household. You can be the best musician in your household. You can be the best musician on your block, in your neighborhood. But what does that really do? You know, that's great. Here's a cookie. Let's move on. You know, but when you start to really look at it and you really start to pound the pavement, and there's even frustrations, you know, being one of the best streamed bands from Connecticut that nobody knows, and I'm speaking from experience, is terrifying because you then sit in this quandary of some of the more local independent press isn't going to cover you because you're making waves, but you're not really making waves because you streamed really well in Canada, but you have no way to get to Canada. And, you know, New Haven is not Canada. So you get lost in this shuffle and it can drive you insane. You know, it's great to have a phenomenal song that's, you know, streamed great in Bolivia. I live in New Haven. I can't drive to Bolivia. I don't even have a passport. What are you doing to me? You know, but there's also that other story. At one point in time, being in a metal band long time ago, we had the honor of opening for King's X. And King's X, for those who don't know, phenomenal musicianship, great songwriting, puts on a heck of a show. I personally have issue with them because of the way things went down. But what is most incredible is they were playing headlining festivals in Europe, and they had to come back to play a basement in Brooklyn. You know, that not a lot of people were just there to see them. And there is that frustration level. There is that moment of, you know, we were just playing for 10,000 people, and we weren't even able to sell out the 400 people that are supposed to be in this basement right now. You know, what's going on? And that can drive you crazy, and that can create your personality to be not so nice to hang out with. And for those up and coming acts that don't understand that, you know, there can be a lot of beef and issue. And I was a younger fool and chose violence that day. And I'm not 100% proud of myself, but my knuckles still cracks from it. So it's something I can talk about, and it's a great story to tell. But I did handle it incorrectly because I was not able to see their point of view and to see the heartbreak that came on. I was just in my own hurt and my own heartbreak aspect. How do we as artists prepare ourselves for those type of moments?
Well, let's put it this way. King's X was a great band, still is a great band. They're still playing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's if they treated the support crappy,
Mm-hmm.
that's on them. I mean, you know, guess what? You know, you're playing festivals in Europe and you're playing a 400 seater here. You know, guess what? You come out just playing as if you're playing over at the arena or at the auditorium or at the festival over there. So you know, it's on them to understand where their frustrations lay and that kind of hold them back, because you know that's what happens in this world. Similar story to the Cheapskates. They came back, played a Tuesday at CB's. Was it 40 people in the audience?
Right.
And you know, frustration. You know, they lash out at me, which I understand. And that's what a manager gets. You know, in that situation, They loved me when there was, you know, when the Google Dolls were opening for them in Germany. Yeah, and you know, hated it when they were like the third bill on a Tuesday night at CB's. Or at Max's or somewhere else like that. So, you know, I understood it, you know, and that's where the like I said, the manager comes in, tries to like diffuse that and take some of the hits. Right. You know, I mean, I understood the frustration. I was getting fun. You know, I mean, I was on backstage with, you know, multiple national acts, and I come back and I'm playing third bill to a local, you know, New York City band. So yeah, it's definitely frustrating. You got to be able to handle that frustration. And guess what? Where you handle it may not have been so bad. I mean, sometimes, you know, I'm not saying I espouse violence, but you know, sometimes you got to let it out. Sometimes,
right?
And sometimes that's the avenue that you take. Hopefully, it's not often, you know, but every once in a while, smashing a wall doesn't hurt. You know, it hurts your hand.
Well,
like,
no, it hurts. It still hurts to this day. And when it rains, it reminds me that I was dumb that day, that I chose incorrectly. I'm just saying, karma is a wonderful thing, and age makes it so much more powerful. But again, it's a great story.
Like I said, I you know, one thing throughout my career in the music business is that, one, I was always an honest guy and fair. I mean, you know, that's why I probably made no money, because you know, I didn't try to screw anybody. You know, I didn't try to do anything to mess anybody's karma up. I tried to be the right guy, and that was, you know, that was me and my partner at the time. You know, but the other thing was that, you know, you learn that, guess what, you got to roll with the punches. You know, I was a promoter. You know, I did shows with Blondie, the Shirts, the Dictators. You know, I as a manager, I had 3 national acts that made no money, but we had a lot of fun. And you got to remember, that's part of the aspect of, you know, this whole music scene. Just like right now, you got to have fun. You don't have fun, guess what? It ain't worth it, man. I mean, you got to enjoy what you're doing. If you're doing this to pick up some girls, ain't working. If doing it to make money, you may not. The odds are you're not going to make money. All right, but
Right.
if you're doing it to be an artist, be a true artist, you don't care about those things. You care about the music you produce. You want people to understand the music you produce. I'll give you another story. First big show I did in New York was with Blondie, the Dictators, Sun, and the Miamis. Sun and Miamis were big CB bands at the time. So rented out this abandoned building, put up. I got Blue Oyster Cult PA up there. I had it was put a makeshift bar, even though it was supposed to selling drinks. Great time. Deborah Harry and Chris Stein come up to me a couple of days later, say, hey, you want to manage us? And I talked to my partner and I said, Blondie just asked us to manage them. I ain't gonna go. Because we're a promoter. We're not gonna be managers. And at that time, to me, the manager was a scum of the earth anyway. So, but in the long run, I sit around and I always lament that here I have Deborah Harry, Chris Stein coming up to me to say, hey, you want to manage us? And I turn them down. And like 6 months later, the glass comes out and they have a #1 single. So, that is kind of sometimes not only is karma, but, you just bad timing, man. If I had any inkling that Blondie was going to be that big, I would have jumped on the bandwagon, even if it was just for a short time.
Right. Well, it's so true. You got to live the Beatles experience. Every record label that passed on the Beatles' initial demo tape is now kicking themselves every time the Beatles cash a check, and they're going to continue to cash those checks to move forward and grow. And that's just that one other time. The what ifs are so terrifying, especially in an art field, but really in music. And I can only really speak about the music aspect because it's those what ifs that are those nightmares. It's those what ifs that can drive you completely insane. What if I was this way? What if I didn't do this? What if I did that? It got so bad at one point, I literally joined the military to quit music because it's that crazy of an addiction. And you can kind of see that in your journey as well. You started out promoting, you're doing the management stuff, and then you're done with music, and then you go to Connecticut, which I personally feel is like the unsung gem, like the hidden gem of the music world. Because we're sandwiched between Boston and New York. So not a lot of people pay attention to us. But from there, it's that hunger, be like, okay, that's cool. You have bands that are willing to shout louder. You have MCs that are willing to take that on. I still remember the chaos that happened when Puff Daddy actually stated, you're not going to find, good artists coming from Connecticut. And then you had artists like Mr. Council come up and release a song, going completely against that. And from there was this extra light that shined. You have the light from like Jahan Nostra, out there pushing hard. And we're like, okay, you feel the way you feel, but I'm going to show you a little bit different. And there is that hunger that is in CT. Do you see that a lot with the acts, or is this just something new that I just made up?
No, well, it sounded good if you made it up, but it's fine. No, I do feel that hunger. I'm with you. Again, I was raised and born and raised in New York. I moved over here 17 years ago. Again, they moved my family to a little nice neighborhood and to, at the same time, just get away from music. Because like you, instead of joining the military, which thank you for your service, I, just moved. I figured that's a good way of getting away. But like you said, it's in your blood, and I see that it's in Connecticut, the blood runs really deep. There are great bands out of Connecticut, and I think that whole Boston and New York thing is starting to erode a little bit because there's a lot of really good venues now coming into the state that are kind of drawing those 2,000-3,000 seaters that these bands need, and all of a sudden now you have that venues. So instead of just bypassing the whole state, we are now a destination, which is phenomenal for Connecticut. You got College Street in New Haven that's bringing in some really good talent. You got a new small on the smaller end, Sugar Hollow no, located at. Yeah, well, Sugar Hollow, that's out of Danbury. All right, that just opened up small space, but again, owned by musicians, for musicians. You got all the guys at Premiere that are, doing Westville, they're doing Space. I mean, so there is a multitude of good venues. I mean, the Acoustic is reopening under Park City. So, it's you're kind of losing that skipping stone. You're not, hey, well, we don't need Connecticut because, we don't have a good place to play. Places are starting to come and the bands are starting to come. And that's good for the local talent because now, I just saw an act at the Space and they had a local band opening up for them. That gives that local band exposure for the band that just came down. And I see that I've seen the Write-Offs play opening up for people. I've seen quite a few different really good Connecticut bands come in and open up for national acts. I mean, they may not be the hugest national acts, but decent, nice sized national acts. And guess what? That exposure is necessary. Like you said, how do you break the mold? You get into yourself into a spot where you can see more people can see you. And at the same time, if you click with some of these artists, and it happens a lot, like with Frank Vialli, he ends up opening for people, because he's able to network once off a gig, he's able to network that into a longer tour. All right, so there are many different avenues that a band can take. But what I like about Connecticut is that the bands here are hungry. I mean, they're a hungry band. Every time I go see a new band out there, I could see the hunger in their eyes. They want to break out the mold. They want to be, not the community band. They don't want to be the block band. They want to be the national band. And when you have that drive, as long as the material is good and you have that fever, I think that's perfect. I mean, because, like you said, Connecticut's always been like the forgotten state. I don't think anymore. I mean, listen, again, I hate bringing up this reference, but Shane Penguin, tons of streams. All right. I mean, you guys did really well. I follow you on Spotify. I see how many streams are coming in there. Now you got to convert that. Like you said, it sounds good, but you got to convert that into something that's bigger. And that's how you start off. Use those Spotify streams. You send it to all the bloggers out there, and there's a lot of more medium-sized and small blogs that are looking for the Shane Penguins. So they're looking for the King Cools, and they're looking for those bands because they, like me, want to expose new talent.
Ralph, I hope they're looking on Behind the Brand on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Raised, Elm City made, EZ Bluez is in the building. Behind the Brand, WNHH 103.5 FM. If I can barely speak. Ralph, I've been hearing a whole bunch of knowledge from you and EZ Bluez. What have been some of your favorite interviews, from interviewer to interviewer, as I'm speaking to you right now? What have been some of your favorite interviews for the past 50 years you've been doing what you do?
Well, the blog has only been around for 4 years. The rest of that has been the other 46 years.
Gotcha.
But I've had some really, one of the better ones was a band from down south called Blacktop Mojo. Fun guys. All right, they're kind of like a Southern blues vibe, kind of like Black Rose, that kind of groove, and fun. I mean, the main thing about an interview, what the interviewer is looking for, as you should know, because you're an interviewer, is you want to keep people entertained. You want to have people, learn about the band, but at the same time, you want to make the reader or the viewer feel like they're part of the whole process. And that's why, I throw in typical, interview questions here and there, but I like to throw things that are more personal. I had a guy, I had a PR firm send me a thing, says, well, do you have a template? Do you have something where I can give my bands with, all the questions and they can answer. I says, no, I work on an individual. Every band I try to find out what what makes them tick, and I fathom my questions. I put my questions together by just looking at what they're like. So every interview is somewhat different. I mean, there may be some similar questions because there's hey, how many questions can you ask a musician? But I mean, somewhere in that interview, there's going to be something tailored to particularly for that band. And there's a ton of really good When Rivers Meet from the UK duo blues band. Phenomenal people and very well. When you interview them, you have to laugh because you're almost like the interviewee. You're getting over there and you're cracking up because they're bringing all their flavor and their personality into the interview.
I agree. You don't want to sound robotic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I don't know if any other magazine or blog or website has a template for hey, every band has the same generic questions. Yeah, to me, I find that to be boring. If my readers read that every interview is the same, 6 or 7 questions, after a while, guess what? Why even read it? I mean, you want to find something different. You want to find something new. Yeah. Now, again, you're an interviewer. You get it. You when you interview your personalities, you want to make it so that the audience gets engaged. That's how you get people to view your website, your podcast.
Yeah.
Well, and that's really a key thing. And, I say this to the artists that we have on all the time. It's more important for people to get to know the individual. We can ask all those wonderful questions about, how did ABC and in what timeline is this? And what do you feel for that? Or I can be like, hey, right now on your playlist, what, your top playlist, what is one of the things you're spinning and why does that song matter to you? I find that so much more engaging, plus it throws people off. I used to interview people for jobs, when I was in some type of management, and I would always ask them, about what they would do if a pale elephant walked in right now and handed them flowers. That was one of my top questions. And that was just to get someone to laugh and to take a second and actually think about things. You get so polished. I've from an artist point of view, I've done the interviews where it's like, make sure you hit this, make sure you say that, you got to go through this, and I've been stressed out at night going, make sure you mention A, B, C, and D, and you've got to plug this and you've got to plug that. But now from doing this part of it, I understand that it's just really more about just talk and engage and have a good time. You said it earlier in the last segment, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. And that's something that we in Shame Penguin, state. It's called playing music for a reason. You're supposed to play and you're supposed to have fun. And, we try to push it in a little bit further by having a 3-foot-tall stuffed penguin on stage with us. Why? Because that 3-foot-tall penguin allows us to say some really dark things in a very poppy melody. And hopefully that helps someone down the road somewhere,
Well, again, we're talking a lot about Shane Penguin, which is cool. But cool. I really, that's what I liked about the band. All right, the band. I hate bands that take themselves too seriously. I mean, you got to be able to relate to the little person. I mean, you're not AC/DC that's playing in a huge stadium, and you don't even see the people that you're playing with. Most of the bands I follow playing small clubs, you're right there in front of you. And guess what? If you're going to be, just thinking that you're some rock star, it ain't going to work. I'm going to walk out of there and say those guys are a bunch of jerks. I mean, because it just doesn't translate well, especially at this level. When you get bigger, you have the right to be in that situation. But at this level, well, I'll give you another quick story. One of my bands opened up for Kiss in New York. So I mean, I'm talking about, this is when they were starting out. It's a small club, kind of, like a CB's, but it was in Queens, right?
Right.
To tell you, I had the same that you had with King's X. They were a bunch of really uptight, really thought themselves would be gods already. They were nobody at the time. Right. I mean, eventually they became as huge as they are. But I walked out of that club being that, I was managing the support act, like saying these guys are really idiots. I mean, they
Right.
just turned everybody off. All the other bands. I've been to many gigs where everybody has a really good time. Everybody, even if you don't even like the music, they don't care. As long as you're a musician, they're willing to accept you, and you have a drink and you goof around and you talk
Right.
about what this guitar sounds like or what that drum sounds like, that drum kit sounds like. So, I mean, there are ways, it's just mutual respect. And when you don't get that mutual respect, then you walk out of there saying, like, that really doesn't work.
Right.
And there, there where lies, the whole conundrum of music. You got to
Right.
have fun, and you got to be able to relate to people. And if you don't, guess what? You're just not going to go far, outside of being Kiss. But they went pretty far.
Yeah. But they also had, to me, they're a phenomenal marketing strategy. Their marketing strategy was over the top. And, from a merchandise point of view, I think the only act that has more merchandise than, say, Kiss would be like Insane Clown Posse. So, and for the artists that are out there, when you hit a certain level, that's where your money's made. Like merchandising, Mel Brooks said it the best in Spaceballs. Merchandising, it's where the real money in the movie is made. And it means a lot for the local artists as well, because, hey, on that stream, you're getting 0.0011 cents per stream. But on that hat, your band makes $7. Oh boy, I'm getting popular today. On that hat, that band makes $7. I'll take $7 over 0.0011 cents every day. So you've got to be a little bit in the merchandising aspect. But again, it has to do with the songs. The songs are by far some of the most important things, and from a journalist, what is it that draws you to a particular song? And again, this is a completely open type of question because there's not one thing. And there's going to be a lot of local musicians that are trying to take notes right now to figure out how to write the perfect song to get your attention. And I want to shy away from that. But what do you look for? Is it something that makes you cry? Does it make you feel? Yeah.
Two things. It's got to be different. I mean, again, a local band, Passing Strange, never really heard anything that sounds like that. All right, so that caught my ear right off the bat. It's like, wow, this is something completely different, and it took me a while to have a couple of listens to say they're like, this is really good. I mean, because it was so esoteric and so ethereal that you sit there like, wow. I mean, but once you get the concept, once you get what they're trying to say and what they're trying to do, it's like, wow, this thing is really good. And that's one thing. Be different. The other thing is have a great groove. I'm a groove guy. I mean, if you if you got a groove that I don't care if it's EDM, I don't care if it's a punk band, I don't care if it's a regular pop band. If you got a song that grooves, I'm gonna sit there and say, guess what? It's making my soul happy. It's giving me a smile on my face. All right, and that's how I do a lot of I do a lot of my submissions. The people that submit to me. It's some of the criteria, man. If that song really grabs me because it's got a hook or it's got a groove that really works, and it's definitely something that I got to think about and start writing about. And luckily with the website, I've got some really good contributors. I mean, it started off with just me, and after a while, it was getting like I was getting kind of redundant. It was like I'm reading my own writing, and I said I got to break up some of this stuff because guess what? You have a certain style. And if you're doing 100 pieces after that certain style, it's like, hey, I'm even bored. And I wrote the damn thing. So I was able to get, I have a partner named Scott Steinberg, who's, my graphics guy. I'm the writer, he's the graphics. He's more important than I am to me because I mean, he makes everything look great on the website. The videos look great, the pictures are great. He puts the formatting down right, and so that's a lot of part of being a journalist and a website is that you got to have people engaged because they got to like what it looks like. It's not only the band, you got to make sure they like what you hear. I got to make sure you look at the site and you're kind of engaged to go further. So that's and then I've picked up within the last couple of years, a really good group of journalists. A girl named Anna Steller out of the UK, who's at the moment doing a pilot. I think I told you about in the UK for new bands called Amped, which was kind of cool. We got Marissa from Trashing Violet, who just came on. Yeah, Kate Carroll over at Rhode Island. She handles a big Facebook group called Rock and Road. Got a couple of, we got Rick Demko. He writes a piece every once in a while, and some guy.
One second. Unfortunately, we are winding down to the last moment, and I want to share this moment for you and you in particular. Please tell our audience how they can get in contact with you, whether they're the artist or just someone who wants to read and invest in your brand. How can they do that, sir?
Okay. Well, the website is is called Amp. The website is myampmusic.co, not .com, but .co. They can reach me with at Ralph at myampmusic.co. That's the website's email address. Or if they're a friend of mine on Facebook, just send me a messenger. I get a lot of bands sending me a messenger, say, hey, check this thing out. And a guy like Mike Tracy does. He was a pretty decent musician in the state. He sends me stuff all the time because he's also doing a lot of producing. So through the website, through my email, through Facebook Messenger, any social media, I listen to it all. I may only listen to a couple of bars, but I listen to it all.
That's amazing. We just wanted to thank you so much for coming on the air and sharing your story with us. It has been a fun experience. We're definitely going to have to do this again. Going into 2022, we'll knock it out of the park one more time. It has been an honor and a privilege. Prestige, you want to take us out? You want to play us out, sir?
Hey, Prestige, I just want to say thank you, and then thank you too, Easy. You guys, you guys are definitely bringing that local scene quality to podcasting.
We try. We definitely try. On WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Raised, Elm City made EZ Bluez. This is Behind the Brand.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just this gown? I don't know. Spending time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home, while focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft.